All right, thank you for staying with us. You are watching AM Live on NTV as we now engage with the Information, Communication and Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo is with us here in studio. Thank you so much for staying with us, Bona CS. And we are going to have a look at really what strides have made in the country in terms of leveraging technology, to drive our economic growth and innovation as well. But I'm going to begin with this, which is the latest craze that we've seen, a crypto craze of something known as Worldcoin. We've seen Kenyans line up in queues for days on end in their thousands just to get their iris scanned for a few thousand shillings. All right. So we're trying to understand really, first of all, because this is more of, your biometric data being taken by a foreign entity. Really, we still don't understand how this really works about. But I want to understand, does it concern you as a minister?
Oh yes, absolutely. And it is not something that we came to learn about yesterday. This is something that started way back in April. For starters, let me clarify that we have got a fully fledged entity that is charged with the responsibility of ensuring both data security and data privacy.
Right.
Now, this is the Office of the Data Commissioner. We have established and operationalized the Office of the Data Commissioner for this purpose. Way back in April, the Office of the Data Commissioner got wind of the practices of this entity and did a letter to them to clarify what they were trying to do. Information available to the Data Commissioner is that within the existing legal framework today, there is no provision in law that that organization had negated. There has been correspondence between the Office of the Data Commissioner and that entity.
So they're legally doing this?
No. What we are saying is that there could be security issues around it. There could be regulatory issues around it which we need to improve. But as far as the Data Act, the 2019 is concerned, they were acting within the law. The Office of the Data Commissioner got wind of this, wrote to the entity. They have had several meetings. As at yesterday, we got wind of what happened. It was a security concern as well. So we are going to approach this issue from a multifaceted approach, from the Office of the Data Commissioner, from the security perspective, and from the regulatory perspective. It is a cause of concern to us, and we are addressing it as a whole government approach.
Because because we already actually have the Data Commissioner who gave a warning to people, to Kenyans, really, about to be cautious about the data that they are giving out.
But you see, the issue here is that what this entity is saying, that they are getting this information data voluntarily from Kenyans. There are provisions in the Data Commissioners Act which safeguard how an entity can get personal data from somebody. Their argument is that they are voluntarily getting the data from Kenyans. But what the concern of the Office of the Data Commissioner is that Kenyans do not need to be exploited for a song just because perhaps out of desperation they believe that they can give.
Where the ministry comes in with a policy to make sure that Kenyans are not exploited.
Yes, as we speak, we are already addressing that issue from a regulatory perspective and also from a security perspective as a whole government approach.
So what do we expect to see?
We expect that today, later on, the Office of the Data Commissioner is going to give a comprehensive position on that issue. We have already come up with a framework, and we are going to have a comprehensive statement from government today through the Office of the Data Commissioner, under whose ambit that space is domiciled.
Right. So for now, because we've been seeing the queues really get longer by the day. So for now, we'll just still.
No. The issue here, Zainab, is that there are issues to do with security around it. There are issues to do with regulations around it, which we need to strengthen.
Okay.
Let me put it this way: our laws and policies and regulations are not static. Depending on unfolding events from time to time, you learn lessons and you get to realize that there are perhaps certain policies, laws, and regulatory frameworks which need to be strengthened. And we are working on that.
All right.
Later today, we are going to have the Data Commissioner giving a comprehensive position on that issue.
But
there are also issues which touch on security. It is not just a question of regulation. There are also aspects of security involved, and we will adapt a whole government approach to tackle that issue.
On that matter?
Yes, we are consulting behind the scenes. But I don't want to preempt what is going on. Okay. What I can assure Kenyans is that later today, the Office of the Data Commissioner will be addressing that issue through a comprehensive position.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at all that, what do you think of these, long queues? What do they speak to? The state of unemployment, the issue of the cost of living, really, because most of these people who are going there to seek this 6,000, 7,000 shillings by getting the iris scanned are really jobless people. They're quite desperate, and they're willing to sell anything just to get that, those few thousand shillings.
That is what I would refer to as irresponsible use of the digital space. As government, we want to be proactive. There are a lot of opportunities within the digital space, and I believe we can actually create jobs. This is what we have embarked on. We are saying that we are able to create up to 1 million jobs through technology, the digital space. We want to exploit the digital space to improve the standards of living of the people. We have got legal provisions which govern the operations of that digital space. We have got the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act. We have got the Data Act 2019, which regulate the way we are utilizing the internet, or by extension the digital technology for that matter. But as government, what we are saying is that we can use technology to enhance efficiency and effectiveness in service delivery. We can use technology to create jobs in a positive manner. So we expect Kenyans also to act responsibly. We have got the laws, but we must start with self-introspection, what we are going to use technology
from an individual level.
Oh yes, it starts with you and I.
All right.
We must have a change in attitude, culture and attitudinal change. It starts from you and I.
All right.
We should not, and this does not just apply to the digital space alone. As Kenyans and anybody else for that matter, the world over, we cannot just rely on laws, regulations, and policies. There has to be self-discipline and self-restraint in the way we use the digital space. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I mean, still on issues of data security, so what we also witnessed just the other day was the hacking of the eCitizen platform. I want us to just have a look at that. You said it was an attempted hacking, and that we have not lost any kind of data. No data was breached at that point. How sure and how can Kenyans be sure of their data and that their safety of their own data?
I don't want us to use the word hacking, if you allow me. Hacking means that someone who has got no authorized access to a given platform illegally gets access to that platform, gets access to the data or anything else resident therein, and adulterates the data or uses the data for ulterior motives, intentions that the data was not meant for. This is not what happened. There was an attempted attack on the eCitizen platform and other platforms, including but not limited to those in the hands of the private sector. As far as the eCitizen platform was concerned, I've said before, and I want to repeat, that we have got an elaborate mitigation measure around it. Kenyans should not be worried. That attack did not lead, attempted attack did not lead to infringement of data or access of data. So the privacy and security of data that is held by government on behalf of Kenyans can be ascertained as we speak.
But how would you explain then, the loss of access to government sites with the eCitizen?
You see, what happened is that they made abnormal requests to the system. It can happen that when you make abnormal requests, even yourself, if you have got more than enough people trying to call you, your phone will get jammed. That's what happened. They made abnormal requests to the platform over and above the ordinary amount of requests to the platform, and this is what led to a bit of inefficiency and effectiveness in the system, to the extent that the system was not operating at the normal levels. As we speak, that has been addressed, and that system is back to optimal capacity utilization levels. Yeah. At
this point, when we speak,
oh yes, everything
is back to normal, at optimum level, with measures in place to ensure that data
we have got a sustainable risk mitigation framework. You see, we anticipated this, and this is not something that is only unique to Kenya. As you digitalize, people are also thinking, criminals are also thinking of how to enhance their techniques in cybercrime. So from a proactive perspective, as government, we knew this was bound to happen and we started preparing for it. As we digitalize, we are also putting in place an elaborate risk management framework around it. So it's not something that is new to us. We knew and we were prepared for it. What I want to assure Kenyans is that we have addressed that setback. The system is back to optimal capacity utilization. But moving forward also, we have got a sustainable means of ensuring that we have got an elaborate risk mitigation framework around the e-citizen platform. So there's no cause for
So next time we will not see our systems going down and not access our systems for 3
We are
good
proactive,
days.
and once you put in place that framework, we don't expect it.
How soon? How soon do you expect that? Is it already in place?
Yeah, I mean, the system is in place. The risk mitigation framework is in place.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about something you mentioned during your scorecard launch on Monday.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just pick a number of things. So first of all, was the issue of the assembling of the affordable phones,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So you're saying we're going to assemble phones here in the country,
yes,
locally,
yes,
at a retail of $40. So that's
yes,
about what, less than 5,000 shillings, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, what incentive do we have for phones to retail this much?
Well, you see, this again is proactiveness on the part of government. You see, we have embarked on this ambitious program of digitalization. That would necessitate that Kenyans consume government services through their phones. We will not expect Kenyans to continue visiting government offices to consume these government services. So we are being proactive in the sense that we know that there is a deficit in the market as far as smart enabled phones is concerned. So we have partnered with the private sector as government, most of the telecommunication companies, so that we embark on local assembly of smart enabled phones. There would be incentives to do with taxation. Yeah? There are some tax waivers that they have asked for, and some of these provisions have already been contained in the Finance Act, the recently formulated Finance Act. So we have made provisions in the Act, and we are at peace based on feasibility studies that these funds will be in the market at a unit cost of $40.
Really?
Yes, by next month.
By next month?
Oh yes, yeah. We are set.
So we have everything in place?
You see, this has been work in progress. We are not reactive. We are proactive as government. We have been planning for this. You see, if you are digitalizing government services and telling Kenyans that, look, you'll have to consume government services virtually, then all Kenyans, if not a critical mass of Kenyans, must have access to smart, cheap, enabled phones. As we speak, not everybody has got access to a smart enabled phone. So we are being proactive as a government, and this is what we have done. And I think it is the logical thing to do, that you be proactive as opposed to being reactive. That's exactly what we have done for the benefit of Kenyans.
Well, you have local investors who perhaps would be very interested in joining this venture. Would you have the same incentives apply to them, to invest in this particular sector, since, the bigger, goal would be what? To manufacture them locally, right?
Yes, we are starting with local assembly. We are moving to manufacture of telephones locally, and we are also moving to manufacture of computer software. Yeah.
So we're beginning with phones?
Yeah, we are beginning with phones.
So we are going to provide the opportunity and the space for local investors?
We'll open it up to local investors. And anybody else for that matter. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the other issue, which is the digital identification process. Right?
Yes.
Talk to us about that. And really, the biggest concern for Kenyans at this point is, and I know you've probably had this question several times, how different is it from the Huduma number that was sold to us?
I want us, and I've said it before and I want to repeat, I want us to look at this issue from a conceptual perspective. We are digitalizing government services. We are saying that all government services will be available on technological platform moving forward. When we came into government, we only had 350 services about the e-citizen platform. Today, we have done 5,084, fully digitalized.
300 services?
We had 350 services about the e-citizen platform.
When you joined?
Yes. When we came into government. Today, we are at 5,084. And remember that our target as at June was 5,000. So for purposes of clarity, we have surpassed that target. But we have also gone a step further and mapped out a possible 9,500 services that can possibly be digitalized. Over and above the 5,084, we have got 2,555 that are partially digitalized. And it is now work in progress. We are working towards full digitalization. So our proposition is that by the end of the year, we will have all government services about the technological platform. If that is the case, then it does not make sense to ask Kenyans to physically visit government offices to consume government services. This is why we are going the route of a digital identity. Now, from a conceptual perspective, what we are trying to say is that apart from, as opposed to having a physical ID, there must be a feasible way, technological way, through which government can confirm that you are actually the person you claim to be. It is as simple as that. It is as basic as that. That if we can use technology, leverage on technology to confirm that you are whom you claim to be, then government should not force you to consume government services by visiting government offices. You can consume government services from the comfort of wherever you are, including but not limited to the comfort of your house.
But what is the difference between this and Huduma number? Isn't it the same exact thing?
No. It's not the issue of, it's not the same thing as Huduma number. Both in terms of objective and context, there's a fundamental difference. The objective of Huduma number was to put in place a digital database. A population database. Our intention is to come up with a means of verification that you are the person that you claim to be by leveraging on your biodata. So if there is already data that we have in place, we will build on it. And I'm saying this because I don't want Kenyans to think that we're reinventing the Huduma number. That is not the issue here. This is why I've embarked on this process of sensitization of Kenyans about what our digital identity really means. The Huduma number was meant to put in place a population database. It was a good idea, but the way it was introduced, if you ask me, was wrong. A good idea, but wrongly introduced. The implementation framework was wrong. One, it was introduced too close to elections, so people became suspicious about it, that perhaps it had got certain links to the election processes. Okay? The other issue is that there was no adequate communication around the Huduma number. And that is what we want to correct. We want to have a commensurate communication plan around the digital identity so that people understand why we want to introduce the digital identity, how that will affect them, and what will be the end result. And we are saying as government that we are not going to force people or coerce people to take the digital identity. The onus will be on you, because we are saying we are digitalizing government services. We are giving you a means through which you can consume the services virtually as opposed to visiting the government office. This is what India has done, Belgium has done it, Pakistan has done it, Estonia has done it, just to mention but a few. Kenya cannot be an exception. So the choice will be on you. In India, for example, and I was there about a month ago, what they did while introducing their Andha, the digital identity, is that they gave people the option. Because the benefits outweigh the risks or the fears, almost all Indians have onboarded the digital identity. That's the same thing we want to do. We want Kenyans to understand the rationale and justification of the digital identity. All
right. I mean, it is voluntary, and you have a sizable population in the country that is still yet to be connected to the internet. I think you might agree with that. Yeah. But then at the same time, does it mean that if I don't have this digital identity, I cannot be able to access government services?
You see, that's the direction we are moving. And Kenyans need to start preparing for this, because we are going the full hog as far as this is concerned. We are putting government services on technological platform because that is the only means through which we can enhance efficiency and effectiveness in service delivery. We are also doing this to seal revenue leakages. As government, and this has been stated from the highest echelons of government, that we are not going to witness any revenue leakages in this government. And the only way to seal those loopholes is through digitalization. The resistance that you may witness, and this is normal in any change process, are from people who are benefiting from the status quo. And we are saying we are determined, despite any resistance that may emanate, whether from outside or from within government, to pursue this to a logical conclusion. Because it is the logical thing to do.
It's a logical thing to do.
Oh, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about the issue of the e-commerce, right? The country's e-commerce potential, which is largely limited by improper national addressing system. I think this is something that you're also looking forward
yes.
with the Postal Corporation Service, I believe.
Yes.
Talk to us about that.
Oh, yes. We have come up with a policy and bail on their national addressing systems, which is now moving to stakeholder engagement before it is progressed to the next level. What we are saying is that if we have the requisite level of ICT infrastructure, and this infrastructure entails, one, accessible, affordable, and stable internet connectivity all over the country. You are aware that we have embarked on 100,000 kilowatts, all out of 100,000 kilometers of fiber all over the country. Correspondingly, we have embarked on digital skilling to ensure that Kenyans have got a commensurate level of digital skills that would facilitate optimal uptake or consumption of the digital infrastructure we are putting in place. If we have that in place, then we do not need to have physical interface between the source of raw materials and the market, or the seller of product and the market. We are saying we want to leverage on e-commerce, technological platforms.
So this is like what, Amazon?
Oh yes, that's the direction we are going. Yeah, we want to do e-commerce. There should be a virtual means through which the seller of a commodity interacts with the buyer of a commodity. That's the direction we are going. Somebody selling fish at City Market here should be able to market that fish, post that fish on the digital platform. The buyer should be able to see it. There should be a means through which, using our technological platform, that the buyer can pay for that fish, and then there is last mile delivery. That's the direction we are going. And to facilitate this, we need to have a national addressing system that would facilitate the last mile delivery.
All right.
That's what we are working on. We are at policy and bill level. Yeah.
You have the employees of Posta, perhaps, who would need the skills then, the digital skills, to be able to work around this infrastructure. Is that
we have embarked on that process of training Posta staff, because we are very clear as a ministry that the only way to reinvigorate the performance of Postal Corporation is to go the e-commerce route. As we speak, Posta is moving away from just the courier business that it has been known for, and we are moving as we speak, we are involved in distribution of passports. We are involved in distribution of medical supplies, yeah, just to mention but a few. We are also saying that in the not too distant future, we will involve Postal Corporation in as we try to re-engineer the operations of the government advertising agency in last mile distribution.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is perhaps something that we'll be seeing on the e-citizen platform as well, perhaps an address, a code.
Oh yes, it's already work in progress as far as the postal code is concerned.
That's already within the portal?
No, it is work in progress.
Right.
We are moving towards that.
So okay, what timelines are we working with?
Within the next 3 months, this should be available on the e-citizen platform.
You do know in the next 3 months we will be holding you to account to this and saying,
and
this is what you promised.
I'm used to that.
This is what you
Anytime I make a statement, I know I'll be held accountable for it. I know the expected outputs and the output indicators on the basis of which I should be held to account. So I'm at peace with that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the government's plans towards the media, especially private media.
Yes.
Yes.
What's the issue?
We do know about, how you're moving, adverts to MyGov.
Yes.
And what does that mean for private media?
Let me clarify something. The role of government is to create an enabling environment for the private sector to thrive, including the media. Policy, regulatory framework. It is not the role of government to finance the private sector. That's where I want us to start from. It so happens that within the existing framework of the GAA, the government has been using media houses for purposes of distribution of the what? Of the newspapers, or of MyGov. Yeah, of MyGov. But what I'm struggling with is to understand the rationale. And I'm saying you need to understand where I'm coming from, because I come from the private sector as you, okay? Anything that we do in government moving forward must be informed by logic. It does not make sense to utilize the private sector. And I'm not just targeting the media. I'm saying, why should I use the private sector, if I'm responsible for this ministry, to distribute MyGov, pay 60 million shillings, while I can do it and reach a wider stakeholder base through the Postal Corporation of Kenya. Postal Corporation of Kenya is a government entity. It doesn't make sense. Why should I use the private sector and spend colossal sums of money to print MyGov, for example, while I can use a government entity like the Kenya Literature Bureau to do it for me at 3 million shillings as opposed to 60 million shillings in the private sector? Is there any logic, rationale? You know, anything that I do, and this is the direction Kenya is moving, I'll be held accountable for acts of omission and commission, including but not limited to utilization of public funds, because the government does not have its own money. The money that we have in government is money that is in our hands on behalf of the Kenyan public. And there has to be optimal utilization of resources. I'm struggling with the rationale for that. And I don't think we are going to continue that way. That one I can assure you. And there is no ill motive in this. Before we embark on implementation of this program, I'll call the media, have a sitting with the media and explain to them the rationale and justification. And I can assure you, I'll convince you that what we are doing is the right thing.
So it has nothing to do with trying to put the media in its place, quote unquote, if I might put it like that, and it has everything to do with how you want to use money, that has been allocated to your ministry.
As media houses yourselves, you push us to ensure prudence in utilization of resources. So basically, this is one way of responding to the oversight of government by the media houses. We are trying to ensure prudence in utilization of resources. What we are saying as government is that we have no problem with the media exercising its mandate, based on our 2010 constitutional dispensation and also based on the freedom of association. We believe that there is a mechanism through which the government, the media, can self-regulate. And we will let that continue to a logical conclusion. As government, we will not infringe on the freedom of the media. But we also want to appeal to the media to be responsible in the conduct of its business. At no point in government have we had a sitting at any level of government and discussed how to go to bed with the media, to the detriment of all other stakeholders. No, that is not our intention. We want the media to continue doing its job. We want government to continue governing. We want to view each other as partners in this process for the benefit of the Kenyan public as opposed to competitors. But what we are asking for is objectivity. Objectivity does not mean you side with the government. If anything, we have said as a government, we have nothing to hide as far as government is concerned. We want the media to continue giving us free feedback on our performance by way of oversight, so that we also improve on our performance, including but not limited to monitoring the utilization of public resources. And we have gotten instructions from the top, at the highest echelons of government, that each and every one of us must ensure that there is going to be no revenue leakages in this government. And we are ready for that. So let the media do its job, let government do its job, let's view each other as partners in this process for the benefit of the Kenyan public. But let's have objectivity.
All right. Would be the perception perhaps of lack of objectivity by the government on the part of the media perhaps be a reason as to why we have now shifted as a government to saying, look, we are going to now cut this advert, we're going to move to the other side?
No. That is not the issue here. I've said that anything that we are going to do in government in that space, as far as the engineering of the GA is concerned, we will adapt a participatory approach. Before I move to implementation, as the person who at the moment is charged with that the responsibility of executing the mandate of the CS Ministry of Information, I'll call the media. I'll have a sitting with the media and I explain to them what we are trying to do. We have nothing to hide. And I'll convince you. Believe you me, I'll convince you. You'll come to believe that what we are trying to do is the right thing.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
In conformity to guidance we have gotten from the media that we must ensure prudence in utilization of public resources. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's shift gears a little bit here and talk about issues that concern a lot of young people in this country as well. Yeah. And I think it should also concern you as the person in charge of the ICT and Digital Economy Ministry. It is about cyberbullying. I want to understand what the government is doing to address this. We've had concerns of people being bullied on social media. It's one of the biggest issues. We've seen people, taken to court as well because of cyberbullying. What is the government's, stand on this? Is it something that you're concerned as a minister?
We have got the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act, which has got very clear provisions as to how we should conduct ourselves in the cyberspace. As and when anybody goes against the provisions of that act, then the law takes its course. You see, the problem we have been having is that government can only do so much. You have got the policy, legal and regulatory framework, but we have got three arms of government. We have got the executive, we have got parliament, we have got the legislature, and we have got the judiciary. Once the government, through its legal mechanisms and apprehend somebody who is breaking the law, the person is taken to court. We leave it now to the judicial jurisprudence to administer justice. That's how far we can go. Ours is to enforce the legal provisions and policy framework that exists. We have the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act.
Do you think we might have a bit of maybe some loopholes within the law?
As and when there is no law, there is no law anywhere in the world which is foolproof, which is perfect.
Right.
As you implement, and this is not just law, as you implement any policy framework, there are lessons learned. Because again, the operational environment is not static. The operational environment is dynamic. So as you embark on process of implementation, emerging issues exist, lessons are learned, that should then inform improvement of the existing legal and policy framework. And we have said that as government, we are ready and willing to always engage stakeholders, depending on unfolding events from time to time, to improve on the existing laws, to improve on the existing policies.
Okay, because what are some of the concerns that we have seen from Kenyans, especially on social media, is the issue of really what kind of action can be taken against the perpetrators of, for example, character assassination. There is the issue of bullying. There's the issue of releasing nudes and all this, you know, explicit photos and videos of other people. So this feels like there is a loophole there.
There's no loophole. It's a question of enforcement. There's no loophole. The law is very clear that we must act responsibly within the cyberspace, and we have got this Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Act, which has got very, very clear provisions on how to deal with such instances.
The other question that I've also received from Kenyans is the issue of there are some platforms. For example, one of them is a platform known as TikTok. It's a social media platform, and a lot of young people enjoy having, you know, conversations and communication there. But there is a time within the wee hours of the night where, you know, many things happen, and you know, probably around 11 p.m. up until 3 a.m. So there have been concerns that there's a lot of immorality happening at that time. I don't know if this is something that you are aware or should be a concern for you as a ministry.
If there is a way that we should strengthen, a means through which we can strengthen the existing policy and regulatory framework, we'll go ahead and do that. If there is concern with feasible proposals as to how we can improve the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act 2019, we are willing to review and update the Act as government, while in partnership with other arms of government like the National Assembly.
All right. In terms of how to protect children as well from explicit content, what are we doing about that? That
again has got to be governed within the confines of the law. The law has got very clear provisions that we should not exploit children in the cyberspace. And let us start with self-introspections as Kenyans. I've said, and I want to repeat, that we may have laws, but we must also, that law must also be augmented with responsibility on the side of Kenyans. We must act responsibly in the cyberspace. It starts with you and I, a culture and attitudinal change. We cannot leave everything to law. The law may exist, but we still dance around the law. So it has to start with self-introspection. What we need as Kenyans is a massive culture and attitudinal change. And this is not limited to Kenya. All over the world, we must change the mindset of the people.
Okay. Let's go back to the question that I'd asked you earlier on that was captured on our Business Daily report. It's on the issue of the Wi-Fi hotspots. And just to pick on a question here, where are those Wi-Fi hotspots specifically that you're talking about? Do we have specific locations, and how do they work? Who are the service providers? How widespread are they?
Okay. Now, our target is to roll out 25,000 Wi-Fi hotspots all over the country within the next 5 years. Between the time we came into office and June, our target was to do 2 free Wi-Fi hotspots in each county. We have surpassed that. We have done a total, that would give us a sum total of 94. We are at 421. We have done free Wi-Fi hotspots at the city market, which you mentioned, at Mudhura Market, at Kenyatta. We have done it in Nyeri. We have done it in Maravin, Elgeyo Marakwet. We have done it in Ahero. We have done it in Bondo. Just to mention but a few. These Wi-Fi hotspots have been established and operationalized through our ICT authority, which is ICTA. But we have now come up with a framework through which we want to partner with these private sector players in this space so that we move much faster with a view to meeting our targets. So beginning next month, we will be having a massive rollout of these free Wi-Fi hotspots all over the country in partnership with the private sector. Again, something I want to mention is that as government in this digital transformation agenda, we are really leveraging on partnership with the private sector. We are not doing everything as government. We envisage that perhaps the maximum we can do as government is 52%, and the private sector is doing the remaining 48%. When it comes to rollout of fiber, we are partnering with the private sector. That is already work in progress. We have brought on board Safaricom, Airtel, Jamii Telecom, Liquid Telecom. We have had a sitting with them. We have agreed on what component of the fiber each and every one of those entities is doing, and the timelines, and also what we are doing with what we are doing as government. So private-public partnership in this digital space is imperative. That's the direction we are going for the rollout of the fiber. That's the direction we are going for the rollout of the establishment and operationalization of the Wi-Fi. But specifically in terms of location, for a start, we are targeting the markets, and we are targeting the bus terminal, because this is where our mothers and sisters operate by way of itinerary trade, and this is where our youth are usually domiciled, the bus terminus willing away. So we really want them to leverage on technology for purposes of gainful economic activity. So those are the two places which are targeting for a start.
Okay. The next question that was tied to that is, how secure are they, and have they had any impact from your own assessment?
Oh yes, we monitor utilization. We monitor utilization of the Wi-Fi, including those who are using the free Wi-Fi hotspots, by the way. I would give you an instance of where I launched a Wi-Fi somewhere, and then somebody who has been opposed. This is what I want to explain this to you so that you understand that as a government we are providing services indiscriminately to Kenyans. We are not thinking of politics. We are not thinking of the voting pattern in the last elections. I launched Wi-Fi in an area which I would describe as opposition dominated. That very day in the evening, when we were monitoring utilization, we realized that a key opposition figure had abandoned his Zuku and migrated to the free Wi-Fi hotspots. And we have been monitoring. He has stayed there permanently. He's there, yeah, permanently. That is the approach we are using. We are offering these services indiscriminately to every Kenyan. So to answer your question specifically, we keep on monitoring, evaluating the utilization and impact. Because if it is not adding value, then it negates the rationale. We want to see if the Wi-Fi is increasing the level of economic activity in those regions where they have been established and operationalized. And
you feel that that has had a huge impact,
and we keep on monitoring. We have got the baselines, we have the baselines, and then we use that to monitor the performance moving forward.
All right.
To track the performance moving forward. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the other question that was also tied to that as well, lastly, is how do they work? Do I just go to an area that is a free Wi-Fi zone?
Yes.
Get probably a notification that there's a free Wi-Fi here and immediately join?
You know, we have a radius. For example, if you go to where we have put the Wi-Fi, it has a radius of about 400 meters. If you get into that, you log into G-Connect. It has no password. You can use it. It is free.
And you're saying this data is completely secure?
we have got the data. And one time you can call me and we discuss the statistics. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Let me get a couple of questions here that we have received. And remember, you can ask Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo any questions. You can also just send in your suggestions and views on our hashtag This Morning AM Live NTV at NTV Kenya. You can also tweet me at Zainab Ismail. Ask the CS, why must one have to visit Immigration Nyayo House to apply for passport and submit, while he is talking about digitalization? People go there just to get biometrics and photos, while it can be done through cyber and your mobile as well. It seems there's too much corruption at Nyayo House.
That's one of the things we are addressing. For example, we have gotten concerns from the diaspora that even with respect to acquisition of passports, they have to physically come back and visit Kenya. And we are saying this cannot continue. We want to have a seamless virtual means through which all Kenyans can consume government services from the comfort of wherever they are. And for purposes of clarity, by the way, some of the areas that in the initial stages we have targeted for purposes of digitalization include the immigration and border control, the Kenya revenue services, the health for purposes of universal health coverage, the Ministry of Lands, more so the land registry, so that we can facilitate transactions, just to mention but a few. So we are aware of those challenges, and we have proactively prioritized the implementation of our digitalization program based on those priority areas.
All right.
Yeah.
And you talked about deployment of 6,700 in TVET institutions. That's in terms of the digital skills. The
devices.
The devices.
The devices which we have deployed in the TVET so far.
Right.
Yes, and we have got 23,000.
400 in 3 universities.
Yeah.
And we've also supported county governments. You talked about creating 109 digital jobs.
Yes.
And trained 336 youth in the digital skills through the Ajira and Jitume programs.
Yes.
Talk to us about these programs and how they're going to have any impact in terms of this digital skills program.
You see, if we are digitalizing government services, correspondingly, we must think of the level of digital skills. Because if you are digitalizing, then people don't have adequate capacity, ICT basics, ICT skills to utilize the technological platform. There's going to be a problem. So one of our key result areas in our digital master plan is digital skilling. So we are targeting members of the public, and we are also targeting the youth within that space. We must enhance the level of digital skilling. As we speak, we have managed to train a total of 336,000 youth and also created jobs within that space. Our ultimate objective is not just the training for purposes of the youth. We have been having a problem of unemployment. And we are saying that there is enormous potential in the digital space which we can leverage on for purposes of digital jobs. So what are we doing, for example, with the Jitume program? We install the device, we provide the training. As the youth undergo the training, correspondingly, we are linking the youth with global technological companies for purposes of digital jobs. So this is a program through which we are moving the youth from learners to instant learners. When His Excellency the President launched the first Jitume program at Kabete, one of the youth there told us that somebody who actually undertook his Form 4 exams last year was already earning up to an equivalent of 200,000 Kenya shillings per month in the digital space. And you know they are paid in dollars, okay? So there's enormous potential in this space through which we can create up to 1 million jobs every year. And this is the direction that we are going. So apart from digital skilling, we are leveraging on this digital skilling program to create digital jobs for our youth. We are reaching out to global technological companies and telling them that, look, we have got enormous potential within our youth in terms of skills, competencies, and capabilities in the digital space, which you can leverage on. The opportunities is enormous. I'll give you another example. The digital labs, the village digital labs which we are establishing. We want to establish a total of 1,450 digital hubs within the villages. In each digital hub, at every ward center, each and every ward, that administrative unit called a ward is going to have a digital hub. We have had meetings with the members of parliament and agreed on a working framework where they will give us the facility where to set up the digital hub. We will set up, we will deploy the devices, we will undertake the training. Each center, Jitume Digital Center at the ward level, is capable of creating 300 jobs, training 300 youth and creating 300 jobs. On average, each constituency has 5 wards, which means in each constituency in this digital space, we are capable of creating a total of 1,500
What happens
jobs.
to those areas that still lack complete internet connectivity?
But that's where we are starting from,
right.
Zainab. That's where we are starting from. As an integral
by giving the skills?
No. As an integral component of this digital transformation agenda, we are laying out 100,000 kilometers of fiber to those parts of the country that hitherto had not been connected. You need also to understand why we are coming into this as government. Because the private sector, there are certain segments of the Kenyan society or regions where the private sector finds it not feasible to roll out fiber. So we are coming in as government to address that market gap. We have got the Universal Service Fund, whose role and mandate is to facilitate connectivity to those parts of the country. As we speak, we have already negotiated and gotten funding of about 5 billion shillings from the Universal Service Fund. We have also negotiated and gotten funding from the World Bank, a threshold of $500 million to support us in this digitalization agenda and enhancement of fiber optic cable. So consciously and deliberately, we knew that in a proactive manner, we must have stable reliable internet to those parts of the country which had not been connected. For a start, that's where we must start from.
Okay.
Once we have the fiber, then we move to the connectivity, we move to the digital scaling. Okay. At that point in time, then we can talk of consumption of the digitalized services. So it is a chain of plans that feed into each other. It is an ecosystem of ICT infrastructure. That's why we are referring to it as the digital superhighway.
So sort of a holistic
approach. Oh yes, it's a holistic approach. One, work on the fiber connectivity, yeah? Ensure that people have got adequate levels of skills as you continue to undertake the digitalization exercise, and then enable now the members of the public to consume the services virtually. Right. But moving forward also, while in this space, I've mentioned to you that we are pursuing a digital identity for all Kenyans. Correct. To augment all these efforts. Eventually also to eliminate bureaucracy in government, we are going to have e-signatures in government. So that we don't have this situation where people say that somebody has not signed a document. We are going to run a paperless government, and Kenyans need to start preparing for this end result. We are going to run a paperless government, we are going to have digital identity, we are going to have e-signatures. That is the direction that we are moving, and that is the envisaged end result. And psychologically, as Kenyans, we need to start preparing for this end game.
Okay. Yeah. And I think that's a fantastic idea. But I remember the Deputy President saying that some cabinet secretaries are actually doing badly in terms of communicating government agenda and progress. Do you agree with this? And as an ICT and digital economy cabinet secretary, isn't this an indictment on your part when you're talking about cabinet secretaries who cannot be able to communicate the government agenda, digitally?
You see, it is not for me to evaluate the performance of my colleagues. I don't want to impute an improper motive on their part. Neither do I want to push deeds into their bloodstreams. Okay? That is not for me. There's the appointing authority, and we have got means and mechanisms of evaluating performance.
But how are you doing it as a cabinet secretary in charge of that, to be able to push your peers within the cabinet to be able to be the foundation?
We have already agreed that as far as this digitalization, and we are aligned, by the way, at all levels of government, that cabinet secretaries take responsibility and leadership for the digitalization process. And they have done this meticulously in all line ministries. Cabinet secretaries are leading from the front as far as the digitalization agenda is concerned. In all line ministries, cabinet secretaries have given instructions downwards that we are not going to have manual processes in government. They have also given instructions based on guidance gotten from the president that we are not going to have these multiple payment platforms. We are only going to have one payment platform in government, which is 322. So we are all aligned as far as digitalization is concerned. We have bought into the idea that it is the only feasible way through which we can re-engineer the operations of government for purposes of efficiency and effectiveness, to enhance service delivery to Kenyans, and also bring in more people into the tax bracket. Look at what the Hustler Fund has done, for example. A critical mass of Kenyans who are not hitherto not involved in any gainful economic activity have now been brought into the income bracket, and by extension the tax bracket. If we continue with this axis or aspect of digitalization, we'll bring in more Kenyans into the tax bracket. We will be able to collect locally generated revenue at the current fiscal policy rates, taxation rates to be specific, and we will be able to mobilize within the Kenyan market adequate resources to service our external debt and have surplus for purposes of both recurrent and development expenditure. That is the direction we are going.
All right.
Yeah.
And I know we have to take a very quick break here on AM Live and TV. I can see a couple of other questions. When we come back, I'll be posing these questions to the Cabinet Secretary. Talk to us. The hashtag this morning is MLiveNTV, at NTV Kenya, at Zainab Ismail. You can also tweet the CS at Eliud Owalo. Indeed, is that okay?
Is
that fine? It's Eliud Owalo?
Eliud Owalo, at Eliud Owalo.
At Eliud Owalo, yes. All right.
Yeah.
Talk to us. We're going to be back in a very short while, and we'll continue this conversation in a moment. Stay with us. All right, thank you for staying with us. You are watching AM live on NTV. And just once again, I am with Eliud Owalo, the Communication and Information and the Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary. Thank you so much for staying with us. And just to answer to some of the couple of questions that we received from Kenyans, I'm going to be posing to that in a moment. But also to remind you, I see a number of you asking if you can be able to call in. In fact, yes, you can actually do that. If you feel it would be appropriate to ask a question to the Cabinet Secretary directly, and you can see the numbers on our screen down there. But Bonasius, Joseph Kimonyi on X is saying, and X is now, I see, mine actually changed yesterday from Twitter to X. Yes. Right, so he's asking, good morning, kindly ask the CS why Kongowea market in Mombasa is yet to have a free government Wi-Fi, and also what are the speeds of the Wi-Fi?
Yeah. You see, we are not excluding any part of the country as far as this digital transformation agenda is concerned. That's why one of our objectives is inclusivity, to facilitate inclusive access. This weekend, we are at the coast region, yeah? And I believe Kongowea is one of the markets that we will be launching. It ought to have been launched by His Excellency the President when he was there. The schedule did not allow. It should be one of those that we will launch this weekend. We have got several. There's another one also in Ukunda that will be launched this weekend. So we are not excluding any part of the country. We are actually prioritizing those parts of the country where those operating at the bottom of the economic pyramid are domiciled for purposes of itinerary trade in conformity to our bottom-up economic transformation agenda. We start with the bottom. So if we have a critical people, that's why we are prioritizing the market. If we have got a critical people in the market, we have to prioritize the market. Kongowea is one of them, and I believe is one of the ones we are launching this weekend. Yeah.
And away from Mombasa, there are other areas.
There's Ukunda, there's Kilifi,
as well.
There's Mirikiti. Right. We are also launching Mirikiti. I think there's one other one in Mariakani which has already been installed. We are going to launch. Yeah. And
even away from that, I mean, we have far-flung areas as well. We have areas in Lokichogio back in Turkana.
Yes.
And perhaps even far north in northeastern as well.
Yes.
Are we looking into?
Yeah, we are looking into that. I think on 10th, on 10th we will be launching some in northeastern. Yeah. We have already diarized that. We have installed and we are going to launch.
Okay. In terms of the speed, how are we looking at the internet? Is it very slow? Is it something that, you know, is
we want to improve on it. When we started, because in the pilot phase, the speed was a bit low, but we are improving as we go. You see, we are talking about efficiency and effectiveness. So as we do this, we will ensure that the speed is as fast as possible. Where there have been challenges, we will improve. Use that as those lessons learned and improve on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I want to get your experience in transitioning the cabinet to fully digitize as well, because that's another question that I can see here on our Facebook page. How has that been?
It's been seamless. It's been seamless because it has facilitated the work of the cabinet office and the cabinet, by extension cabinet, very well, because all communication is done virtually. We don't have any paperwork. Before we had that transition, we used to have volumes of files brought to our offices by the cabinet office a day or two to the meeting. Now the onus is on you as a cabinet secretary to visit your technological platform, access the cabinet agenda and even the memos in advance before we go to cabinet. And this has really facilitated efficiency in the delivery of or in the proceedings of cabinet. You have realized that from January we have been having all cabinet meetings virtually. And if you have been taking note, you may also realize that the performance of cabinet has really been enhanced. We are churning out more policy resolutions, more cab memos, through this leverage on this technological platform. Okay. Yeah.
And I know we have a caller from Kitale, Waso, who's now joining us. A very good morning. Thank you for watching AM Live. What question, suggestion, perhaps remarks you have for the Cabinet Secretary?
Mine is just that to congratulate the CS. I can see somebody articulate. And I thank the President to appoint such a clever Kenyan.
Sorry, as we increase our volume, also allow me to allow us to be able to just fix a little bit of the volume here in studio so that we can hear you. Kindly just talk to us. Maybe you can begin with your question and name as well.
Based on what from Stanley, I wanted to document the minister for working done. And I wanted to know in which part of Tanzania we have the hotspot.
No, we are not able to get that question from Waswa from Kitale, because there's a bit of a hitch there or a gap there in terms of the signal. But we'll continue to listen to some of those questions that you want to ask the Cabinet Secretary. We'll be posing some of them as well that you are asking on our social media platform. But the CS also talked about the issue of removing the licensing requirement for foreign ICT companies wishing to invest in Kenya to have a 30% local component. Is this true?
That we have done already. We have got a step further. I've presented a cabinet memo to cabinet. It has been approved. You see, what has been happening is that some time back in the year 1998, somebody introduced a provision in the Kenya Information and Communication Act that if you are a foreign company, yeah, you must have 30% local content. Okay? Now, if, for example, you are a telecommunication company and you're told you must have 30% local content, and Kenyans are not putting in money in the sector, then there's a problem. Because you can only operate for a period of the initial 3 years without getting the 30% local content. That was the law. And what they have been doing is that every year they now make applications requesting for waiver from the Cabinet Secretary, because the Cabinet Secretary is empowered by law to grant the approval.
Right.
And they have been doing this almost on a yearly basis. But what we are asking is, what should be our source of concern? Look at it this way. Assuming that a company, at the discretion of the minister, is not conforming and the minister decides to shut the company down, we shall have lost massive investment. We shall have lost jobs. So what should be the focus? Should the focus be getting local investors who are actually not taking the shareholding through a provision in the law, or we waive that provision in the law to spur or to give impetus for the private sector to invest in the telecommunication sector? And if you ask me, the answer is in favor of the former. That, look, let's waive the law. Let's remove that provision from the law. Let the private sector come in and invest. We don't need to make restrictions. And this is something that was mischievously introduced because some people who are actually not investors wanted a provision in law through which they can get shares on paper, shares from this local shareholder, that, look, you must bring me on board as a shareholder if you want to continue operating in Kenya. And we are saying we are not going to have those type of bottlenecks in government. Yeah, let's create an enabling environment. The business of government is not to get involved in business, but to create an enabling environment for the private sector.
But then you also have those who say, then even with that, we still need appropriate regulations and policies in place to ensure even the national interest of Kenyans is also protected,
yes,
right?
Yeah, that's true. That one is now through operationalization by way of regulations. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. And Joseph Obura is also joining us from Naivasha. And Joseph, a very good morning to you. Thank you for watching AM Live. What question do you have for the Cabinet Secretary this morning? And in case your TV volume is high, kindly just pull it, make sure that it is down so that we can be able to hear your question properly.
Okay, good morning.
Yes, good morning. We can hear you, yes.
Yes, actually, just a comment. I think when she for the great work and doing what really good, I'm a fan of it mostly being level, why I in everything. And the question on ICT, what are their plans? Mostly because they say there will be the of the market where free Wi-Fi. In Nigeria, we don't have. I don't know what they are doing about that in the market. Yeah.
Okay, so your question is basically on what the government is doing in terms of the free Wi-Fi plans in Naivasha specifically.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so I know we have another caller, Jackie, we do? All right, Kefa from Homa Bay as well. So I know the CS has noted that. Kefa, very good morning to you. What question, comment do you have for the Cabinet Secretary this morning?
Good morning. I'm going to Homa Bay. I just want one question for the Cabinet Secretary.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. Because I have one question for the Secretary. There's something going on in Kenya that you have seen the government talking about it. What is this Worldcoin? And I'm seeing people lying. What is this one? The government is not talking about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kefa. I think we lost you a little bit at the very end, but I guess it's a question we had raised with the CS at the very beginning of this conversation. It's the issue of Worldcoin, but also of interest. Actually, I've seen from many Kenyans is the free Wi-Fi. This is something that has really interested many Kenyans.
Yes.
I see many questions as well here on X. People asking about when are we able to get free Wi-Fi across the country, and also that's a question that was asked by the gentleman from Naivasha as well. So certainly
we are rolling this out. We are rolling this out indiscriminately to all parts of the country,
right.
Naivasha included. So very soon it will be Naivasha, Nakuru, Gilgil, that whole ecosystem within the Rift Valley will have free Wi-Fi. We have done it in Kericho, we have done it in Eldamaravine, we have done it in Baringo. Yeah, so we are moving strategically all parts of the country.
All right.
We are got a target of 25,000 free Wi-Fi hotspots all over the country, and our target for June 2023 was only 2 Wi-Fi hotspots per county. And we have surpassed that. We have done a total of 421. We are just asking for patience, but sooner than later now, in this space, Kenyans will see us moving much faster as far as the establishment and operationalization of the Wi-Fi is concerned. We are for a start targeting the market and also the bus terminal where predominantly our youth are domiciled.
Okay.
Yeah.
A question here by someone as well. It's Red Tone saying, ask Waziri, if we really have secure infrastructure, no SOC center, I don't get what SOC center means, but no SOC center in ICT itself, yet we have young, brilliant minds who are good in cybersecurity.
What do they mean by SOC?
That one I am yet to get, but I want to believe that they're asking, do we have the space where young people have an opportunity in terms of cybersecurity to be able to aid the government in their plans?
You see, what we are doing as government, I don't want to go into too much details, but we are enhancing our capacity also to be able to combat cybercrime. And one of the avenues of doing this is massive training. And the people we are targeting for a start is the youth. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I hear that I'm informed that SOC means something, Security Operation Center, right? Yeah. So yes. No security operation center in ICT, so they're asking, we need to.
How does he know that we don't have a security operation center?
I have no idea.
I mean,
maybe they know more than we don't.
There's a lot we do in the back room that is not open to the public. You know, there's a lot of security issues also around this cyberspace. So I would rather we leave that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's not a big issue. Yeah.
Indeed. Okay. And Bona CS, as we move forward, looking at some of the challenges that you have encountered over the past 10 months and some of the plans that you have already put in place to ensure that things run smoothly in digitally and in government as well, and trying to transform how everything is done within the government. What are some of, are you facing more challenges? Do you feel like you're able to overcome some of these challenges?
Anytime you are introducing a change program, there's bound to be obstacles. But one of the critical success factors in introducing any change program is communication, effective communication.
Correct.
We want to get stakeholder buy-in into this process. And not just people, from individuals within government, the whole country, because it is the only way we have means through which as a country we can re-engineer our processes, business processes for purposes of efficiency and effectiveness. The world is today becoming one global digital economy, and Kenya cannot be an exception. We believe that through the measures that we have put in place, the plans that we have, starting from the digital, starting from the rollout of the fiber, to the digital skilling, to the digitalization of government services and digitization of government records, to the digital entrepreneurship, where we are embarking on the manufacture, the assembly and eventually manufacture of smart-enabled phones. If we do all this and then anchor it on a sound policy, legal and regulatory framework, we should be able to position Kenya effectively as the ICT hub of Africa. And we believe this is doable, and we are determined to do it. We are not going to let Kenyans down.
All right.
Yeah.
And because we are giving the opportunity for Kenyans to ask you the questions that they really deem important, Philip Mbai is asking, Bonas, yes, Huduma number was a good idea. Now going for the digital thing is like repeating the process. Why can we not use the cheap IDs as has been used by other countries successfully and borrow a leaf?
What we have done is to do benchmarking by way of best case practices. As you do benchmarking, it does not mean you lift a solution that has been utilized elsewhere and you try to impose it yeah, on your platforms. We are looking at best case practices somewhere elsewhere and looking at what we can learn from those practices, but we want to customize our own unique identity and also utilize our local capacity. You see, we have been having a lot of, in the past, revenue leakages around this digital space as well in government. Look at the digitalization that we have done in government. A major milestone, 5,084 services. You will not believe that we have not contracted or engaged any foreign service provider. We have used our own youth to roll out that digitalization. Even in this journey of digital identity, we will only augment efforts of our own youth by best case practices, but while customizing to our own situation. But we are not going to spend colossal sums of money, taxpayers' money, on importing technology in instances where we have our own capacity to do it, or importing technical capacity while we have got our own capacity to do it. Yeah.
All right.
We are using local resources by way of expertise as much as possible. Yeah.
Still on same, I believe, David Sao is asking, but we've already unfortunately spent millions on the same, and it appears it's just a change of the name when we're talking about the same issue. And
I think I'd explained that.
Right.
That was supposed to be an electronic population database.
And this is a completely
yes, it's a completely different thing here. It's a completely different thing here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And away from that as well, let me see what else we have here. I believe that we're getting some calls. However, the signal isn't the best. But Buena CS, let's see what else we have. We need to talk about the issue of prudent use of money as well, in terms of the digitalization process that you're embarking on. How much is this going to cost the government and taxpayers, really?
You know, we are going the direction of public-private partnership. If we can get the private sector to do 98% and the government 2%, we'll take that option. Yeah.
Is that something that
it's possible also. Our proposition is that we'll undertake up 52% and the private sector 48%. Yeah. But if we can leverage on the existing infrastructure of the private sector, because what matters is the end game, the end result. So as we speak, we are looking at ways and means of utilizing as low public resources as possible, as little amount of public resources as possible on this digitalization exercise. That's why in everything we are doing, we are going the direction of partnership with the private sector. We have done that with the fiber rollout. We have also done that with now the free Wi-Fi connectivity. We are partnering with the private sector to do that. You see, we have unutilized capacity in government within our NOFB network. So we are seeing how we can work with the private sector so that they can get access to some space within there, and then they provide also the free Wi-Fi connectivity. So it's a question of being strategic. How do you use as little resources as possible while getting the necessary impact? Yeah.
In the next, 4 years or so that you're going to be in office, where do you think we're going to be in terms of how we are running our business as a government?
There'll be a paperless government. We are going to
Is that what you envision?
Yes,
right.
That is my vision. My vision is an empowered and digitalized Kenyan society. We are going to run a paperless government for purposes of efficiency and effectiveness. We are going to have a digital identity. We will have e-signatures. We will have massive digital jobs.
Digital jobs.
Yes.
And that's what we expect. So we're going to...
And we are also going to have a gig economy, by the way. This is where you don't have to tie people to work for one entity. And employers need to start preparing for this, because that's the direction we are moving. We are not going to have a situation where people are only working for one entity. They'll be working for you in the morning, in the afternoon for another, in the evening they are doing their own entrepreneurship. A gig economy.
Wow. So how...
And we are going to move to a 24-hour economy.
How will
With technology, we can move to a 24-hour economy, because we will not be tied to day and night. Yeah.
How will that work? Just give us an idea.
Well, we are leveraging on technology. You can connect to somebody at night just the same way you can connect during the day through technology. So we are not going to have physical interface between the source of raw materials and the market. That's the direction we are going. Kenya will be a digital economy.
Are there going to be jobs that are affected in this?
Come again?
Are there going to be any physical jobs affected in this?
There could be physical jobs affected, but there will also be massive jobs created. So the end result is that we are going to have more jobs created than jobs lost. Yeah. And that is the direction we are going, really. You know, in the face of digitalization, If you are not computer literate, then you are actually operating past your sell-by date. Unfortunately, that is the position. Yeah. So we need to start preparing for this.
Right.
We need to acquire digital skills, and we need to move to the space of the gig economy on one hand and the digital jobs on the other.
Are you speaking to the Education Ministry itself to be able to also ensure that this aligns with your own vision in terms of skilling people from at the lowest level, from PP1 even perhaps, to be able to understand how to use technology?
One of the areas, and actually for a start, we are partnering with the Ministry of Education in rollout of our Jitume program. For a start, we had started by deploying the devices in the TVETs. And we have done this in quite a number of TVETs. I think 112 TVETs as we speak. So we have been partnering with the Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Education. We are also alive to the fact that in this era of technology, you don't need to confine people to the four walls of a classroom. So we are going in the direction of e-learning. Tomorrow morning, the President, His Excellency the President, will be launching our own version of the first open university in Kenya at Konza. We are launching that tomorrow morning. So we are being proactive. We are ahead of the times.
In primary schools?
We'll start at the lowest level possible as we cascade upwards. We are in partnership. We are talking as far as implementation is concerned.
All right.
Resources permitting, in the not too distant future, we will start imparting computer skills at the lowest level, primary level, moving upwards, so that people graduate, as people graduate at different levels, they also have commensurate level of computer skills.
All right.
Yeah.
And even as you move with that, you know, you're right, because at some point you realize that people have undertaken a 4-year course at the university, and by the time they're leaving the courses, they still do not have the skills they need to even understand simple basic computer, you know, functions. So the digital, although however we have really moved and made huge strides as a country in terms of digital literacy, but there is still a huge gap there. So I think this is one of the things you're saying you're going to be able to address.
But we also need to change our mindset as Kenyans. We have got a critical mass of Kenyans who have gone up to university and they don't have jobs. We can start creating those jobs straight from after Form 4 level while leveraging on technology. There are a lot of jobs there. People will be learning, but they are also working at the same time.
Right.
Through this Jitume program that we have launched, those young boys and girls have got the capacity to earn adequate resources to look after themselves, pay school fees for their younger siblings, and also look after their aging parents.
And even pay school fees for when they go to the higher tertiary
the higher levels,
as well.
But also, we want to move Kenyans, especially the youth, from being job seekers to job creators by way of entrepreneurship. If, for example, we have a youth who has undergone the Jitume program and made enough money, that youth should be able to set up his own digital hub within the village there and create jobs for other youth, become an entrepreneur. That is the direction we are going. We want to create jobs at the grassroots. We want to enhance the level of entrepreneurship at the grassroots while leveraging on technology. We want to stall this perpetual rural-urban migration in search of jobs. We are going to create those jobs right there in the village.
So I'd rather stay where I am.
Yes.
You know, you're calling me a village person, but I am actually making more money than a person who's in the urban center.
That's the what is the beauty about being in town while we have no money in the pocket? If you can create it down there in the village. And that is why, in a proactive manner, we have reached out to our members of parliament so that we agree on a working framework. They are giving us the facilities where we are going to do the deployment of the digital hubs. They are also meeting the costs of electricity, okay? And we are deploying, training, and getting the jobs for our youth. We have also reached out to the county governments, through the Council of Governors, and we have agreed on a partnership. Those so-called village polytechnics, we are looking at a framework through which they will make those polytechnics available to us. We will install the devices there, train the youth. They'll help us to with those polytechnics and also meet the cost of electricity. Okay. So we are working on a framework. You know, when you are implementing anything new, in the initial stages, there are bound to be challenges. Like one of the challenges we have been facing is this issue of the markets not being able to meet the cost of electricity. We are now in partnership with the country government through this framework, and they have agreed that they'll help us in identifying suitable market centers where we are going to do the installation of the Wi-Fi's, and they'll also meet the cost of electricity. So it's a partnership at both levels of government. That is imperative. As we digitalize within the national government, correspondingly the county government must also digitalize. We want to move together. If anything, there's nothing we'll be implementing as government which will not be implemented in a given county.
Right.
So what I'm trying to say in short is that a critical success factor in this digital transformation agenda is stakeholder alliances, partnerships and cooperation.
All right.
Yeah.
And lastly, Bona CS, as we wind up, a question here from Victor Armstrong saying, I have a big IT project and I want the government support. As a young person,
yes,
what can I do?
You see, it depends. We have got ways of giving incentives to the youth. Yeah, through our Kenya Innovation Agenda. We have got a parastatal charged with the responsibility of ensuring that they facilitate an enabling environment for the youth to exploit their full potential. If they, and he is free to reach out even to me personally, we're linking up with the Kenya Innovation Agency, which is a fully fledged parastatal. We also have the Kenya Investment Agency, which is another state parastatal, which can also link up those type of youth with the investment opportunities and even partnerships with foreign companies who are willing to invest in Kenya. So there are enormous potential or purposes of supporting those type of youth.
All right.
What we are trying to promote in this digital space is the enhancement of the level of efficiency and effectiveness. If the concern of this youth is financial support, we have the Hustler Fund, from which also he can get support. Yeah, so there are all facets of government, all different entities in government which can facilitate support to those type of youth.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bonas. Yes, we appreciate your time, and thank you for coming in this morning
yes.
and having this conversation. I see a number of questions actually did miss out, but we don't have much time to look at that. However, we will be able to pose some of these questions. Maybe you can answer Kenyans on your own social media platforms to be able
yes.
to really respond to them, because there's still a lot that they need to understand. But thank you so much. Information Communication and the Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo on where we are and the strides we've made and really the journey to building a digital nation. Thank you once again. This is where we wind up on AM Live and TV. Thank you for making the time to join us as well. Your World is coming up shortly with Winnie Lubembe. My name is Zainab Ismail. Have yourself a good morning.